Come on, man. Who doesn't want to hang out with their cool aunt? Auntie Blyte, it's fight night. Auntie Blyte night. Auntie Blyte, bad influence. One of my favorite things in this game, in this world, is discovering cards that you can slot into commander decks. Cards that fit into new archetypes made possible with creative commanders. Auntie Blyte is just that, a creative new commander that makes you scour the internet for cards that don't really fit in other commander decks. Alright, let's dig right into it, but first, let me whisper something in your ear. Hit the like button and the subscribe button, okay? I'm standing on your shoulder, I'm spilling the tea, and I'm sorry about the 3rd degree burns for me spilling that all over your nice new shirt, buddy. Alright, coming straight out of Jumpstart 2022, we got Auntie Blyte, Bad Influence. 2 and a red for a legendary creature, Devil Advisor. It's a 2/2 with flying. Whenever a source you control deals damage to you, put that many +1/+1 counters on Auntie Blyte, Bad Influence. 1 and a red, tap, remove X +1/+1 counters from Auntie Blyte. It deals X damage to any target. So that's interesting. Whenever a source you control deals damage to you, so that's instants, sorceries, creatures, artifacts, whatever. There are many symmetrical effects that hit all players that we can use to break this symmetry by growing our commander. See, your opponents don't get anything for taking damage off of cards like Mana Barbs. If our dear old auntie is out there, then we get this fantastic ability, the ability to combat damage or straight up kill our opponents. Alright, you really want to internalize this. You have to remember, you can deal combat damage with Auntie Blyte. This thing is going to get really big, so you can just swing in if you want to. This is going to be a tough choice though. It's going to be a choice you're going to have to make because Auntie Blyte taps to activate her ability. So if you swing in hoping to commander damage out an opponent, it's going to be tapped. You might find yourself in an unenviable position with shields down, brother. But you know what? We can mitigate this downside by double dipping with Vigilance. You swing in, keep your giant creature as a blocker, and then activate it for lots and lots of damage. We can also mitigate all this life loss by giving Auntie Blyte Life Link. The reminder text for Life Link is, damage dealt by this creature also causes its controller to gain that much life. So whether it's through combat or through Auntie Blyte's ability, it's damage dealt by that creature, so you can gain some life, brother. Now the fun thing about a mono red Punisher deck is that you'll end up having a big impact on the game, whether or not you win. Mono red has access to some generically really fun toys like Blood Moon, Valakut. Sticking either of these or both of these into a mono red deck ain't ever a bad idea. I just don't have it in the budget version. And then you got staples like Jessica's Will, Chaos Warp. These cards are staples for a reason, they're really good. I generally try to find more synergy pieces specific to the commander I'm building, but making room for staples is never a bad idea in your commander deck. Alright, let's take a look at some sweet cards for this deck. You got Jessica, Thrice Reborn, 2 and a red for a legendary planeswalker. Jessica has loyalty 0. Jessica Thrice Reborn enters the battlefield with a loyalty counter on her for each time you've cast a commander from the command zone this game. That has 0. Choose target creature. Until your next turn, if that creature would deal combat damage to one of your opponents, it deals triple that damage instead. That's all I want to read on this thing, because realistically, this is going to come down and give Auntie Blyte a tripling effect. Look at this lady, she's just setting her stuff on fire. She's going to set your brain on fire. And you got Kedis, Emberclaw Familiar. Take out the E and the D and it's just Kiss, dude. 1 and a red for a legendary creature, Elemental Lizard. It's a 1/1. Whenever a commander you control deals combat damage to an opponent, it deals that much damage to each other opponent and has partner. I love how we're going to be just flinging around damage with this little guy. I saw this recently in a commander game I played against another person who was playing a Voltron deck, and this thing put in work, dude. After everyone takes like 11 or 12 damage, people start looking around at the table as like, oh, we gotta kill this thing. The commander creature is doing the damage, so if we give Auntie Blyte lifelink, then that's a spicy meatball, brother. Humble Defector, look at this dude, he's just has a bald dude cutting his hair for no reason. This is a 2/1. The cool thing about this is we can, put it on the battlefield, tap it, give it to a buddy, we draw our cards, then play one of our millions of direct damage spells, and it gets caught in the crossfire and dies, and they don't get to draw cards. Chandra's Incinerator, 5 and a red for a creature elemental. It's a 6/6. The spell costs X less to cast, where X is the total amount of non-combat damage dealt to your opponents this turn as trample. Whenever a source you control deals non-combat damage to an opponent, Chandra's Incinerator deals that much damage to target creature or planeswalker that player controls. This is a really weird card. I don't like how it's just a generic incinerator dude. So if we have a situation where we deal 2 damage to each opponent, which is totally plausible, then this costs 1 red mana. Additionally, we can take our counters off Auntie Blyte and ping an opponent, then kill whatever creature we want as well. I wish the art wasn't so generic, because this is a really amazing card. I hope someday Chandra's Incinerator realizes that he's worth it all by himself. He doesn't have to be Chandra's anything. He can just be an incinerator and go do whatever he wants to do. as an independent contractor. Torbrand is great in this deck because there's lots of little repeated sources of damage, so he's tossing little dwarven fireballs everywhere. Enchanter's Bane. This is a weird card. 1 in a red for an enchantment. At the beginning of your end step, target enchantment deals damage equal to its mana value to its controller unless that player sacrifices it. Well, we can target our own Enchanter's Bane to grow Auntie or any other sweet enchantment on the battlefield, like that dumb Ristic study, and then your buddy John over there, he's got to sacrifice it or take 3 damage. Descent into Avernus. Tell me what the heck is going on in this art. It looks like a wall or something. Like a wall that's just falling into Avernus, I guess. 2 in a red for an enchantment. At the beginning of your upkeep, put 2 descent counters on Descent into Avernus. Then each player creates X treasure tokens, and Descent into Avernus deals X damage to each player, where X is the number of descent counters on Descent into Avernus. This card is brutal. This is one of those big effects I was talking about. This embodies the whole spirit of the deck. Let's just yeet everybody's life total into the dang garbage can, dude. Alright, so self-damage and tossing around damage are central to this deck's strategy and philosophy. Let's look at some creatures that accomplish this. We got Cemetery Gatekeeper, 1 in a red for a creature vampire. It's a 2/1 with first strike. When Cemetery Gatekeeper enters the battlefield, exile a card from a graveyard. Whenever a player plays a land or casts a spell if it shares a card type with the exiled card, Cemetery Gatekeeper, which is a source we control, deals 2 damage to that player, which includes us. Massively underrated 2-drop, especially in this deck. Everybody talked about how these sets don't have any value, but they got some bangers, dude. Graveyard Hate, and every time some ding-dong plays a land, they're taking damage. Exocrine sounds like a skincare product from the 90s. X and 2 and a red for a creature Tyranid. It's a 2/2 with Ravenous. Bioplasmic Barrage. Whenever Exocrine enters the battlefield, it deals X damage to each player and each other creature. This is a little mini board wipe on a stick, or a big monster board wipe that draws you a card. Just pretend you found it on Chandelar, for gosh sakes. Goblin Artillery, Orcish Cannoneers. These are all essentially the same card. They got the same power and toughness, little slight differences. I don't know why the designers thought they had to make 3 of these, but the cool thing about these guys is that they have a semi-big butt with toughness 3, so they can survive a couple of the nonsense we're throwing around. But whatever, if they just stick out there, we'll just yeet them over the fence. Who cares if they dies? That's the beauty of this deck. You just kill everything, even your own life total, dude. Zozu the Punisher, 1 red for a legendary creature Goblin Warrior. It's a 2/2. Whenever a land enters the battlefield, Zozu deals 2 damage to that land's controller. So we're going to be damaging our friends, we're going to be damaging ourselves. That's what we want to do in this deck, my friends. Heartless Hidetsugu. I don't know if I pronounced that right. I know it's got goo at the end. 3 red for a legendary creature, Ogre Shaman. It's a 4/3. It has tap. Heartless Hidetsugu deals damage to each player equal to half that player's life total rounded down. So it's dealing damage, just remember that. This is the big granddaddy of dealing damage to everybody. This cute little fella can tap, and then you activate Auntie because she's going to have a million counters and just take your buddy right out of the game. Alright, so there's a bunch of instants and sorceries that deal damage. I'm not going to go through each one because that's a crazy video, man. I don't have time for this nonsense, but I'm going to put the deck list in the description. You guys can look at them all. You could just read them all by yourself in your house alone in your basement. But they want to read like this. Earthquake, X and a red for a sorcery. Earthquake deals X damage to each creature without flying in each player. So you don't want flying creatures to get hit because you don't want Auntie to get hit. We want them to hit all the creatures though because Auntie has flying and each player, so we can throw around damage, we can hit ourselves, we can hit our opponents. Hopefully these games are going to be quick. But I will highlight some of the fun ones. We got Acidic Soil, 2 and a red for a sorcery. Acidic Soil deals damage to each player equal to the number of lands they control. We're going to melt a hole right in your shoes, bro. Look at Urza, he's walking around with holes in his shoes like a dang fool. I like this card, it deals lots of damage around the table. And you got Ankle Bone of Mishra, 2 for an artifact. Whenever a land enters the battlefield, Ankh of Mishra deals 2 damage to that land's controller. So your buddy Schmo over there plays a fetch land and then gets a shock land and then takes 4 additional damage, so he's taking 7 damage like a dang fool. Such a weird old card. Great in a Punisher deck, looks nothing like an Ankh. Are you new to Magic? You may not have heard about Mana Barbs. 3 and a red for an enchantment. Whenever a player taps a land for mana, Mana Barbs deals 1 damage to that player. Listen, put some porcupine quills on a dang mana dribble so everybody feels the pain when they cast a spell. You got Spell Shock, 2 and a red for an enchantment. Whenever a player casts a spell, Spell Shock deals 2 damage to that player. Look at this guy. It looks like a Kuma from Street Fighter just thrusting his fists through some trees or something. I mean, the guy is dramatically doing something, but it's really just 2 damage per spell for everybody. You ever see a Soul's Fire dude? Well, this card can close out games if your commander's getting huge. When Auntie's, 13-13 or 20-20, you're just pumping 3 mana into this little fella, and she's dealing damage equal to its power to any target. It's a Catman letting another Catman throw his soul out there, dude. And you got Gravitic Punch. It's just a similar card. Auntie throws out her punch. I mean, that's really unfortunate. Or we got Chain of Plasma, 1 and a red for an instant. Chain of Plasma deals 3 damage to any target. Then that player or that permanent's controller may discard a card. If that player does, they may copy the spell and may choose a new target for that copy. Listen. Just target yourself, you silly goose. Alright, so when you see your auntie for Thanksgiving or Christmas, you want to give her a present, right? So let's give her lifelink and hopefully vigilance. There are only a few ways to do that in mono red. We got the Batter Skull, artifact, equipment, costs 5 generic mana, has living weapon. Equipped creature gets +4/+4 and has vigilance and lifelink. Those are the 2 things we just talked about, dude. Has 3, return Batter Skull to its owner's hand, equipped for 5. So we talked about how these are great in this deck, and there you go. Such a weird, cool card. I love the art. It makes me ask, what the heck am I even looking at? And you got Batter Bone, 2 generic mana for an artifact, equipment with living weapon. Equipped creature gets +1/+1, has vigilance and lifelink, also equipped 5. Slightly smaller. This art makes you question your own existence. What part of the chicken is that? Basilisk Collar. This thing's great. 1 generic mana for an artifact, equipment. Equipped creature has Death Touch and lifelink, equipped for 2. This thing is like $1.50 right now. Fantastic, very cheap to cast. Mono red decks are fun. I did a Toralf deck a while back, and this is very similar. It makes quick games. Whether you win or lose, you're going to have a big impact on the board. It's kind of a fun puzzle to try to suss out. It's fun to try and get down to the essence of what would make a commander good. It's also fun and interesting to see what the people of the world think, and what direction you would take this commander, because you guys are smart, intelligent people, and you're successful and you're beautiful. Let me know in the comments, and as always, have fun, take care of yourself. Snicky G from Better Commander, signing off.